back to 1 Samuel 22 and verse 1, because that's the kind of people that came to David in this cave. These were desperate men. These were men who had nothing to live for. They were at the end of their rope, and they come to David, and they say, David, you be our captain. Let me tell you the happy ending to this. Did you know that these 400 men that came to David, that were desperate, in debt, and bitterly discontented with life, they looked to David in that cave as their captain. And if you read the chapters that follow, you find that these became David's mighty men. You see, David had learned a lesson. He didn't run away from them. He stayed. In fact, turn to Psalm 57. We're not going to be able to study it this morning, but I want to show you where we're going to be next time. Psalm 57. And I want to show you what David tells them, because this is his testimony. Look at the beginning of Psalm 57. It says, to the chief musician, set to do not destroy. That's the superscript, the part before verse 1. A miktam. Now remember, comfortable, well-adjusted Americans. When you read miktam, do you even care? Do you even study? Do you even know what miktam means? You know, in America, we just keep reading. That means deeply inscribed. This is a miktam. In fact, Psalm 56 through 60, these are all miktams. These are deeply moving and deeply rooted in the heart of David's Psalms. It's a miktam of David, what? When he fled from Saul into the cave. Psalm 57 is the testimony that flows from David being stuck with 400 desperate men who were in debt, who were bitterly discontented with life. And David learned his lesson, and he didn't run away from the problem. Look at verse 57. This is his testimony. You can read all the verses around it, but he says in verse 7, 57:7, my heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I'm not going to act crazy. I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to try and do it my own way. My heart is steadfast, O Lord. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and give praise to you. And right in the middle of that cave, they came to David and said, you be our captain. And David looked up and he said, I'm not going to fail you. I'm not going to run from this. I'm going to graduate from this cave of troubles. And he did. And these men that followed him became his mighty men that served him alongside of him, won his battles, and were his best friends the rest of his life. Why? Because David says, Psalm 57:7, my heart is stuck on you, God. My heart is stuck on you. I'm not going to flee to my own way, but to you as my refuge. And these who are in distress, I'm going to show them how you delivered me. And these who are in debt, I'm going to tell them their biggest debt is their sin. And I'm going to tell them how blessed it is to know that your sins are covered by the infinite, eternal God. And to those who think life is hopeless, I'm going to sing and rejoice and tell them, even in a cave of troubles, you can rejoice in God. This morning, 2 lessons for us. Number 1, how do you minister to people that are in debt, drowning, people that are in distress, people that are in despair? Psalm 57 has a key. David shows us starting in verse 1. He talks about God's mercy. He talks about fleeing to him for refuge. He talks about in verse 2 crying out to the Lord. He talks about the Lord responding in verse 3. He talks in verse 4 about how rough it is to live among lions and those who are set on fire. But he gives us the key to how to minister to them. Number 2, how do you personally not get pulled down by them? If you're in a hard situation, in a cave of troubles that won't go away, how do you stay there and not get dragged down? And that's what we'll see next time, because this little word in verse 7, steadfast, you're going to find is woven into some of the best passages you've memorized in the Bible. And you're going to find out that this is the way that we let the Lord direct our steps and establish our heart and show us where to go. We're surrounded by distressed, indebted, and discontented people, but the greatest thing we can have today is to know we're forgiven.